I'm Secretary at the Office of the UNESCO Chair on Open Distance Learning. Mine briefly is to just introduce the speaker today, Professor Sindile Ngubane-Mokiwa. Sindile Ngubane-Mokiwa is an Associate Professor and Head of Department at the Institute for Open Distance Learning, College of Graduate Studies at Unisa. She's a Principal Investigator for a National Research Foundation funded project, an Open Distance Learning Research Support Program funded project, and a community engagement project. She's an established scholar who has published book chapters and journal articles in both national and international journals. Prof Ngubane-Mokiwa has presented research papers in various local and international conferences. Her research interests are open distance learning, disability, information and communications, technologies, postgraduate supervision, and marginalised populations. She serves as the advisory board member in the Cross-Cultural Human Rights Review in the Netherlands. Sindile is also a disability expert at the African Union. Professor Ngubane-Mokiwa was the acting deputy director at the Advocacy and Resource Centre for Students with Disabilities, and a visiting scholar at the Faculty of Education at the Open University in the UK and Cambridge University in the United Kingdom. I will now hand over to Professor Mwegeti to facilitate the session.
Thank you. Morning, everyone. You will recall that this is the second in a series of 5 seminars that are planned for this semester. Those of you who attended the first session on the 13th of February, you will recall that I gave the session as part of the chair basically giving background information as to what is the purpose of the UNESCO chair and what are we planning to do, what is it that we are hoping to achieve. Now, Professor Mokiwa is, I need to say that, she really said that. Professor Mokiwa is also the newly appointed head of the Institute for Open Distance Learning. And she's here not just as an ODL expert, but also as a partner in the UNESCO chair. What has happened is that I think it was last month she was formally appointed as the director, but before that I've been doing lots and lots of trips from here to IODL in town, conversations with her and her predecessor, Professor Ngubane-Mokiwa. Now, Professor Ngubane-Mokiwa has also been moved another ladder. She's just been appointed as the holder of the endowed Commonwealth of Learning chair in Open Educational Resource. So there's actually a tripartite of people who have been entrusted with driving the ODL agenda at Unisa. So she's here as an ODL expert in her own right, but she's also here as a partner in what the chair does. I think we set the bar high in our last session. There was a lot of very rich, informative, cordial, and I think very poignant kind of discussion. And I really would want to encourage you to engage with Professor Mokiwa. The idea here is to open the spaces for thinking around what is it that we are doing as Unisans in terms of driving the ODL agenda. In my seminar, I expressed concern, and this is the concern that comes from the top. I had to be sat down by the principal who told me that he's not happy at all about how we are doing as Unisans as far as ODL research outputs are concerned. And this is the key, this is the reason why we're having this sessions. I think in the institute, you have, what do you call it, the seminar? Searchlight. So there's a whole range of initiatives that we're setting in motion to get the ODL process underway. So without further ado, the floor is yours, ma'am.
Thank you. Good morning, colleagues.
Oh, Santa.
For those that know me, you'll know that I'm a free spirit, so I'll ask you to open up, relax, research doesn't happen where people are tense. Innovation doesn't happen where people are not open to learning new things. Allow me to do this because it's chewing gum. Well, this presentation, when Prof asked me to do it, the thought first was to do it alone. Then I remembered, when you have a postdoctoral fellow, you can't do all the hard work. So what's the first thing you do? You say, Dr. Manyonga, I've been asked to do this. Dr. Manyonga, will you please stand up? That's my postdoctoral fellow. So I called him and I said, I've been asked to look at the issue of collaboration, and because I'm supposed to be mentoring you, so go and look at literature review. Isn't that the easiest thing to do? But what happened was that while he was looking at literature, he became clever, and I've always said that when you work with a Zimbabwean, you must be careful, because what he did was that he'll keep on saying, what is it that you want? I can't just look for literature. What is it that you want? You know? So at the end, I'm not sure whether it's him that used me or I used him, but at the end of the day, this is what we've come up with, which is meant to look at how do we, as Prof Ngubane was saying, how do we enhance research at Unisa? We have very high targets that we're supposed to achieve. We've been using the normal way of me conceptualizing a study alone, getting ethical clearance and doing the research alone. But what we are proposing now in this is to say, maybe let's look at doing things differently. Because the sole researcher, sole authorship thing, as far as we are concerned, we don't think it's actually achieving what the university wants. So please join me. This is a provocation. Then let's see if we can come up with anything. First, because I'm from ODL, I'll talk about our mandate, which is research, leadership, and service. Then our mission is to advance ODL research. Therefore, you'll understand why everything that we talk about is about ODL research. Then also to lead and influence strategies and practices that are happening within the university. But besides that, also we look at nationally and also globally. And that is why you'll find that people that we work with, UNESCO chair, he might look just like he's our colleague here. But when you look at a global level, that's where he is at, and talking at how do we actually use research, to enhance teaching and learning and whatever. So when you have a chair, let's realize that it's not something very small. And that is why for us, it's important that we partner with people that, as much as our mandate as IODL is within the institution, but because we have the leadership role and the influencing part of it, then we need to work together with other people. Then again, to provide support to all the university colleagues on how to develop their research capacity. Then, in doing this, remember, because they said when you are a leader, you don't talk from your head, you are guided by strategy. So therefore, I said, let me use our strategy. Goal 1 of our strategy talks about, the action talks about leading and advancing ODL performance within the university. And that is why I'm saying that at the moment, the approaches that we are using are not actually getting us here at improving performance. Then again, the action 2 talks about increasing the number of Unisa staff that are actually involved in doing ODL research. At the moment, I know all of you just sit and think, my study was on this, so therefore I'm going to do a project on this. I don't think many of you think that I'm here at Unisa, how do I make sure that the research project that I come up with responds to the business, to the core business of Unisa. I've heard of colleagues, with due respect, that will tell you that they are looking at orphaned and vulnerable children, and I'm thinking, we have our students that are vulnerable, but we are not researching into them. We are worried about things that are supposed to be done by our colleagues outside the university. So therefore, our aim is to increase this number of people that are interested and worried about the issues at Unisa. Then of course, these ones I'm not going to talk about because They are irrelevant for me at the moment. Then goal 2 looks at engaging in the advancement of ODL research in the African continent. You'll see as we talk why I highlight the issue of the continent and international, because when you are collaborating, you cannot be collaborating with your friends here. Collaboration has to be at that level and at that level. For those that were there I think it was last week, when we had the searchlight, remember I mentioned the issue of our role as Unisa in the African Council for Distance Education, in the DIASA, the Distance Education Association for Southern Africa, and then the NADIOSA, which is national, and then the ICDE, which is international. So this talks to these bigger organs that we work with. Then again, you look at the increasing the number of ODL researchers participating and presenting at ODL conferences. How does this happen? It can only be through research projects. Then again, increasing the number of national, institutional, and international research projects. And this particular presentation is about how do we use projects actually to make sure that we do this. But again, the issue of being internally funded and externally funded. Most of us will just say, we come up with a project and we do the work, we get ethical clearance, we do it. You know, other people sometimes I even doubt if they do the research. How many colleagues do we have that will tell you that I spoke to students in Limpopo and I spoke to students in Kuruman, and then you are asking yourself, how did you get there? You don't have funding. And that is why when you look at issues of research integrity, they are to ask yourself, did you really do this research? Research is not about funding, but good research needs to have something so that you go there and get real experiences from the students. You cannot sit here and just assume, unless if you use it, then I doubt. Then of course engage the ODL related community engagement. Then when you look at the scholarship of teaching and learning, which is coming in the Office of Teaching and Learning, the VP, that issue of how do we link the community engagements into research so that we have community engaged research that will then influence our teaching is also critical. Then the goal 3 looks at enhancing training and development in ODL research. Let me pass these ones. Therefore, what was our problem that we identified? We thought that individual research does not enhance research skills. Am I right or wrong? Right. Let's hear.
Why are you basing that on? It depends.
Oh, let's hear. Who said right? Why did you say right?
It's not easy. Unlike when you do collaborative, firstly you may struggle to get ethical clearance in a room.
Oh, so it's just ethical clearance, okay? Why do you say depends?
It depends on the individuals that are together to do the collaboration. Because sometimes, from my experience, there are colleagues that will come together to collaborate, but that collaboration will be successful through the sweat and tears of one individual. Their names will just be there because this person wants to be seen as collaborating.
Thank you. That will come when we go into the challenges that exist. But here my question is, I argue, or we argue, that individual research does not enhance research skills. I'll tell you why. There are these people who will tell you, I'm quanti, I don't do qual. But when you are looking at issues that affect students, you cannot choose to say, I'm quanti or qual. Because there are certain variables that you can get using certain methodologies. And there are certain variables that you can actually get, and you need to use qual. Again, there are people who will tell you, I did an ethnographic study on natural, then you ask them, what is ethnography? No, that's what you say, eh? So what I'm saying is that because of the way that we are trained, we grow, we become comfortable with what we think we know, and we do not learn more. Now, as she says, it depends. If you remove all the negative effects of collaboration, you'll see why we argue that it develops your research skills. But if you are just alone and you decide that I'm going to focus on this and nothing else, it limits you, it narrows your view, and therefore, for me, I would say that maybe you are not so much of a researcher because you just know that only. Given the world that we live in is MIT itself. You know, there are interdependencies. You can't say our students are failing. Why? Because they are not ready. There are other factors that make them not to be ready. Those factors could be emotional, they could be systemic, they could be social. So therefore, how do you then research into these different nodes that affect dropout rates and retention? Then again, there is few inter-college and interdisciplinary collaborative research projects. Because of the way that I think we are used to, oh no, we are in educational foundations, and we are all only working to make sure that the educational foundation or the health studies is the one that shines. We do not sit down and say, what are the other factors that could affect the learning of health science? We are always thinking in uni, you know, yeah, we are always thinking in terms of just what is within our reach. Then the other issue of there's paucity of research on the role of collaboration. I would dare to say that we do not actually sit down and think, is there any other way in which we can do research besides what we are used to? So therefore, in doing this, we are looking at literature. We'll also do a document analysis. And we actually plan to contact the research office, because remember, they are the ones that know how many projects are there, how many are ethically cleared, and then they will tell you what is the output out of those particular research projects. And then, of course, experience itself. Because it's a working paper, you might not see certain other factors because we are still working. We think that the concepts that are going to underpin this particular study is the issue of community of inquiry, to say that how do you learn as a group? This theory is propounded by Garrison, Anderson, and Archer. I'm sure most of you met Anderson when he was here during the RNI. And he actually argues that this was his PhD study. And this simply says that when you look at cognitive presence, it's the very same issue that you were saying, that when you are working together, there's that element of intellect and knowledge production. Then you look at social presence. In this particular case, we are going to use collaborative learning, and then we look at it as in terms of social presence. And then the other part is the teaching presence, because in teaching presence, somebody else will argue that who's going to be a teacher if you're collaborating? And we are going to say, whenever you collaborate, there's an element of mentorship. Otherwise, if your project leader does not, if your project leader is not considered as an expert in what is being done, then to me, there's something that is missing. So whenever, like Sheila was mentioning, that you'll find that you have a project, but there's only one person that is pulling everybody else, I still question that, because when you are actually proposing your team, what do you look for? What qualities do you look for? I know that at Unisa they will look for you because you are younger. Remember, the policy says you must have somebody who's less than 40. Eh? Then they'll say you must have somebody who's black. And that is why most of us black people are in projects that you don't even know. Somebody will ask you, what is this project about? I don't know, I'm just a member. Because they put you there simply because for EE purposes, isn't it? And nowadays it has changed. In offices where there is more black people, we also now start looking for white people to put into the project. So the reason for actually constituting our team member is not normally about what do I want to learn from you? What skill do I have that I need you to contribute into the project? It's more about, and others, I dare to say, they even use it to, you know what I mean? Ask younger people, they'll tell you. Projects is a way of exercising power over the less. You understand? Yeah. So I will mentor you, and you know who will say that. And in most cases, it's been men that have been doing it, but even us now, we are doing it. Yes, and so I'll get a pen 10 to the project. You see? Okay, I told you I'm a free thinker, so enjoy this. Yeah, so what I'm saying is that this part of community of inquiry should then be constituted based on these particular elements of saying, what skills is it that we are trying to learn from each other or borrow from each other? And then what is it that, you know, remember when you get into professorial level, they will say skills transfer. So what is it that I want to transfer? And what is it that I want to learn from those that I think are younger, or as in not age-wise, but in terms of academia? Then, I told you that we looked at literature. In Korea, at the moment, surprisingly, it's the flip of what is happening at Unisa. You actually get more research, more incentives when you do collaborative research. It's the flip of what we do here. At the same place also, there is an increase in collaborative research because they've seen that they're going to get incentives, but also they've seen that when they do collaborative research, they tend to be able to answer different research questions properly. Then when you look at the EU, their policies currently are, they favor co-creation of knowledge and then co-innovation. And that is why when you look at our science colleagues, just look at their trajectory. They will be professors faster than us because in science they collaborate. When you look at most of their publication, you'll find even 18 authors in one paper. Am I wrong? Yeah, they collaborate, they are open, they are not like us who think that, how can you sit alone and come up with a new concept and not even give time to test it out there? So whenever the EU at the moment is saying that work together so that you are able to come up with new knowledge, then of course the issue of, we say as Unisa we are MIT, multi-inter, transdisciplinary. Now that calls for different approaches in knowledge creation. There's no way we can say now we've become MIT, but we are still using the old methods, where I sit alone in my office and do papers and come up, boom. And those papers, unfortunately, nobody even reads them. You see? So we are actually shooting ourselves in the foot. Then, I mentioned the issue of MIT being multifaceted and costly, and because of this costliness, you remember we said before that when you do MIT and you do bigger research projects, you tend to attract more funding because they then understand that you are going to answer more questions in one project. And again, in terms of research productivity and dissemination, there is higher levels. A simple thing like this, for me to cite when I'm writing, I first look for people that I know. Whenever I'm writing anything, I look for Litek, I look for Nsamba, I look for Magila, I look for people that I know first. And what does that do? It increases your citation. It's not people that don't know you that are going to cite you, unfortunately. Unless if first you get Machila's paper, then you look at what he has cited, then you can cite it. So this particular issue of collaboration, it actually assists you in disseminating your work because more people cite you and then you are able to. Nowadays, when you apply for research jobs, they look for your ORCID number, they look for your citation rates, they look for citation index, they look for that because it has been clear now that most of us are just writing, publishing, and it stays there. Nobody is using what we are writing. So therefore, collaboration. Then the issue of collaborative research, It also helps with sharing skills and expensive and unique equipment. In this case, I think you'll see it mostly with the science departments, because they are the ones that normally have to use the equipment. Then again, there's a mentorship of emerging scholars. I mentioned that when my professor here, they'll ask you, who are you mentoring? Now, you cannot go around mentoring everybody, but it's people that are in your project that you say that I'm going to mentor so and so, and at the end of this, they would have published a paper. So collaboration gives you that opportunity. Then the issue of course, increasing productivity. Now, for everything that you do, there are policy implications. Kim and Bach say that whenever you think of using collaboration, you then have to think about how to change policies. Because policies favor sole authoring, sole whatever. You get more points when you publish alone. But in other settings, when you collaborate, you get more points for promotion. So we need to look at policies. And then creation of policies that support the establishment of research networks. At the moment, there are people that are so well networked here, but when they go for their IPMS, the manager will just say, so what? Yet, research and thriving in research really works when you are well networked. People that have been called to do, you know, some of us have to send papers and wait for their mercy, but there are people that have got at a level where they will call you and say, Dr. Mpasha, will you please send us a paper on 1, 2, 3? Prof Ngubane, you are there, eh? How many of us are already there? Let's hear. Because I know that they call you for papers. Anybody else? Guys, we have something to do. If you haven't reached that stage, ask yourself. It says you are not yet an authority in what you do. You are not yet known. And surprise, surprise, once you get out of your cycle of working only in South Africa, people will call you and ask for the South African perspective. And that is why collaboration is important. Because people will say, okay, we know about Australia, we know about this, but we don't know what's happening in Africa. Then they'll call you, because they can't come here and do it. Even when they come up with their big research projects, they'll say, we need a partner in Africa. If you are not known, nobody's going to ask for you. I'm sorry.
Sorry, Prof. I have something. On
Yes.
the issue of being invited or being called to publish with a certain journal.
Yes.
I think I've attended some workshops here, and also we had some international publishers who came when I was at University of Vienna.
Yes.
Who told us that we need to be very, very careful when a journal is calling you to publish in them because of this issue of fake journals. So how do you then balance that?
No, the predatory journals, it's very clear. Because first thing when they call you, ask yourself, what is this journal? I'll give you an example. You remember when we were there last week, we said they are ODL journals. So if I'm called by Open Learning, I know what it is. If I'm called by Irodo, I know what it is. I can even send, let's say I get an invitation from Irodo to say, send us a publication on. I know the editor. I'm going to send an email to Terry Anderson and say, did you ask for it? You know? So you can always work against these things by being out there and also checking in the list for DHET. I'm coming from. They send us a list of all the approved journals, isn't it? So before you accept any invite, you take the name of the journal, you take the ISBN, the ISSN, everything that you can ever take to check if it's there in the list. If it's not in the list, you don't. Yes, Prof.
I just wanted to clarify that I think part of us being here is to, I can see, and I'm glad today I see this, the gathering is a lot of you here are emerging scholars. I think it's important that question is very important. You need to be, the word I want to use is, you need to be vigilant in the way you approach your scholastic path, growth and credibility. All of you will be inundated with someone who says, I read your piece on this and this and this, and giving you a credit. They sugar sweeten you by saying they have read your work, it is very credible, and on the basis of that, we are now inviting you to submit an article here because we think we can make a valuable contributor, you need to be careful about that. That's exactly where Professor Mokiwa says. There's a lot of predatory mindset in the publishing, particularly of emerging journals. Some of them are very predatory. What Professor Mokiwa is talking about here is we need to create a reputation. All right? You need to create your own reputation as a scholar. And when you have created that reputation, you will receive invitation from reputable entities. All right? And that's exactly what we're talking about. I mean, if you get invited, like we get invited by the International Council of Open Distance Learning, you get invited by the Commonwealth of Learning, you get invited by Athabasca. That's what you're talking about. But there's a lot of spam that you get on your email. That's something that you need to be very particular about. When someone says, I edit this particular journal, it's your responsibility to check that journal. Check that journal. Look into, even if you have to go into the list of black populators, you'll find that that journal appears. So if it's not, it should appear in the Web of Science. It should appear in the International Bibliography of the Social Sciences. It should appear in Scopus. If it doesn't appear in there, then don't go for it. And avoid responding to invitations by journals. Don't do that. If they are all trying to make money, they are all part of the broader multi-capitalist nature. They're just making money. If you want to get a reputation, talk to us, say, I have a paper, we'll guide you. This paper will be suitable for ABC and D journals. Then you download pieces in that particular journal, you read them. You get an idea as to whether is your piece speaking to the ongoing discourse? Does it make a contribution? You want to be a member of a community of inquirer in that particular reputable journal, then you have to raise the bar. Be careful. There are lots and lots of vultures out there, and they are all trying to get your money. There's a publishing house in Germany, and I need to mention this before I sit down. There's a publishing house in Germany called Lambert Publishers.
Yes.
When you complete your PhD, one of my mentees is here. Karel, can you stand up? One of my mentees is here. She's just completed her PhD, and I yes. And warning to people like her, you will receive immediately, you will receive an invitation from Lambert. We see you just published your PhD. Can we offer to publish it as a book? It's a predatory publishing house. They take your paper, they publish it. You will see that book being marketed on Amazon for $56, $78, you get nothing. They prey on people's intellectual. So part of you being here is to get to knowing that companies like those, if you're not sure, call me. If you're not sure, call it. If you're not sure, call Professor P. If you're not sure, call Professor Ngubane and research. You need to make sure that you have your ground well done. It's exactly that. But what Professor Mokiwa is saying is that you need to be at a level where reputable entities, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, Oxford, everything else, once you are noted, then you get invited. That's where the credibility lies. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. I hope your question was answered. Yeah, then now let's look at practically what projects do we know of that have actually that were collaborative and we already know their results. Do you remember the TB and HIV research at UKZN? They've come up with cures and they work together. At first it was TB and HIV separate, but because of the relation that exists between TB and HIV, they work together and they've come up with a cure that is going to actually assist, or a treatment that's going to assist for both the sicknesses. Then again, you look at knowledge production, that strengthens the institute capacity. Down there we have Timali. By the way, Timali is at Unisa, but it's a collaborative project. It has partnered with Unisa. And they are big in Africa in terms of leadership development. People come here for blog sessions and they actually look at that. Then again, there's research that is done into the impact of the work that's done by Timali in developing leadership in Africa. Then again, another one that I can mention is the Brigadier BAM that looks at issues of elections and whatever. Those are big, and also that's another partnership. Then the improved access to research funding. There's this particular one, those that have been on ARCSWiD. After the issue of realizing that most academics didn't have PhDs, they came up with the doctoral training, which is a partnership between NRF and all the universities. How many of us have got our PhDs through this? But unfortunately, the funding has been given, but I doubt if they are doing research into. I'm not talking about numbers, because they will say, Unisa had 20 PhDs in this year, now they're 100. No, the impact of those PhDs into the issue of National Development Plan and other, bigger questions or national issues, questions. Then the issue of quality research productivity. Here, Prof, I'm daring you, I said I'm going to use the archaeology of Ubuntu, and he was the leader, and we were the mentees. This project was in the whole of Southern Africa, funded by NRF, and it was led by Prof. Now, what was interesting was that most of us got into the project when maybe we had one publication or maybe nothing, but at the end of the day, Prof was able to say this: go there, do the research, we are going to do the analysis together, and when you are done, I don't need my name as in his name in your publication, but because I'm the project leader, whatever you write, I will quality assure it. Now ask yourself, how many research project leaders are going to say, don't put my name, but I want you to develop as a scholar. So this particular, I've seen it working, and that's why I can put it here. When we started the project, Prof said, out of every region in South Africa, which is 9 provinces, then Botswana, Lesotho, Namibia, Zambia, I expect only 2 papers. But at the end, Prof, how many did we do?
You did 5.
Because there was support, there was funding, we went and collected the data, and also there was, if I can use the word, shoulder to cry on. Whenever there's a time, if you remember, Carol, when you were doing the analysis, they were tearing us apart. No, in the field we find this and this and this. Then Prof Peter said, you are too emotional. Be a scholar. You are too emotional. Can you go back to the literature and read? And then you analyze that data based on scholarship, not your emotions. You see? So you can imagine how we grew up, because we tend to thumbs up things. This and this, and then it revealed this and it revealed that. How does that link with your theory? How does it link with other scholars and what they've done? And then, so what? That is what Manyonga will always say. So what? If people are suffering in the community, so what? We are in the business of developing knowledge. We are in the business of developing interventions so that we change the way people live. So after you came back with your data and you say 20 did this and these ones did that, that's not scholarship. There needs to be so what? And I can tell you that you can get it when we collaborate and open yourself to criticism from advanced scholars. And again, even emerging scholars, you'll be surprised that you learn a lot from me. You learn a lot from your student who's doing masters. Because as you sit down and lay out all the issues, then it lets people, they learn to be critical and think, and they're able then to peer assess, and we learn through that.
Sorry. Just to chip in then, I think I need to talk about this because that was my project, but I think I'm not going to make a lot of noise about it. Just to share with you that the impact of that project has been so overwhelming. She's not going to tell you that it's part of, I think 60% of working in the project, that she was brave enough to apply for associate professorship. There she is. She won't tell you that, but the project contributed a lot to the way of the research that basically made her run through the associate professorship process. The new head of the Department of Adult, I see stuff right here. The new head of the Department of Adult Basic Education used a lot of that for her full professorship promotion, and I think if you listen to her when she gave the inaugural lecture, she couldn't help but speak about what the Akiri Ubuntu done to her. There's a whole range of things, and that's exactly the point. The one thing that I think Professor Mokiwa should highlight, and I'm highlighting one highlight, when you collaborate, collaboration leads to capacity building.
Yes.
That's basically what it is. But collaboration also provides a lot of support. And I'm one of, I had how many people? I had 24 researchers spread across, and all of them, and 2 of my people in Zimbabwe someone they've just applied for senior. One of them is our student, a PhD student. He's just applied for senior lectureship. And to get a senior lectureship in Zimbabwe, it's not an easy thing. You need to really have a workload. Two of our colleagues in Zambia, who are with me in Zambia, who also are our products here in Unisa, they got their PhDs here and they're working here in the project. They are also senior lecturers. And they have used that. So the whole idea of collaboration is how do you lean on a project leader and how do you take out of that to add value to your growth and development? That's what we're trying to do in this session.
And that is why we said this is underpinned by the community of inquiry. You become a group that is interested in each other's growth. You know, we are not talking, oh, this one is doing this to me. We are talking how far, how many publications are remaining for you to get to full professorship? How many publications are remaining for you to do this and this? And it's fantastic, like for our project leader to now sit and say, this one came in as a doctor, now they are this. That one came in as that, now they are this. And I would say this, as we are sitting here, we are the cream of the crop. When you are into ODL research, you are not going to be a follower. We are. You remember when I said at the beginning, research, leadership, and service, we are creating leaders. So if you are sitting here and you are thinking you'd like to be a project lead or project leader one day that will sit and look at what indices we call amatwasa. You know, you look at your initiates and say, wow, you guys came in as this and now you've become this. Then talk to us and say, how do I conceptualize a project? How do I do 1, 2, 3, so that at the end of the day, we can remember this day and say on the 20th of March, I decided that I was going to be a leader in research. Then the issue, obviously, of challenges, and I think Sheila mentioned it, the transactional costs. You'll find that you'll get people that want to be in the project for the sake of being in the project. You should be very tough on that, unfortunately. If there are people that you see that they are not pulling, themselves, you can always approach them. First, I remember Prof, there are people that he had to call back and say, I don't see what you are doing and what. So being a leader is not, you are not selling ice cream, you are not making friends. You are not making friends. If people are in the project and they are not contributing, tell them so. That no, this is not what you are supposed to be doing here. And if it means that you must go back and remove people, project leadership and project conceptualization itself is not a marriage. So if people are not pulling themselves, Sheila, you pull them out, and you work with people that want to work.
I fired 3 people from the project.
Yeah, you
No,
fire
serious.
people.
I
Yes.
fired-
Because if somebody is not doing anything, there is no need for their name to appear. And if you want again to be a leader, you are not there to make friends, you are here to work. But if you want people to step on your shoulders and you keep complaining, then you'll keep quiet and let them, there are projects that have 10 members, but there is only 2 members that are working. And surprise, surprise, the other 8 will be the ones that will be, as soon as there's a paper, they'll just put one line and they want their name to be the first one. So those are the transactional costs. They are so full of themselves and they know what should happen next. And they are so funny. There have been cases where people will be writing together, and while they think the paper is still developing, they see it's already published, and their names have been removed. So these are things that happen when you do collaboration, but you must be vigilant, like Prof said, and make sure that you have timeless meetings and you check what is happening. And you become, if it means that they must sign a contract, we signed the contract where we're saying that we are going to maintain research integrity, and we are going to be ethical in the way we do things. You see, so don't be nice. Put contracts, and if people interview, they don't do what they're supposed to do, take them out. If it means they must go for disciplinary, do that. Then the issue of poor regulatory mechanism, because there is nothing actually within all universities that governs how collaborative projects should work. Who is the project manager? What is their role? Who's this? And why are they there? What are their roles? So those are the things that are not there. Then of course, there's always marginalization of the already disadvantaged. Higher education institutions, I'll give you an example. When VETS comes up with a project, they are not likely to approach University of Venda as a partner. They will want to associate with UCT, UKZN, and probably UJ and Stellenbosch. So the university, there are certain people that will be excluded. But if we bring it here to our own setup, you will find that Prof Ngubane will say, I'm not going to work with Sindile, she's still, she's still too new, she doesn't know her stuff. So you will find that there's a group of only, highly published professors working alone. And this also comes into the issues of race, where certain groups work alone, maybe male, white professors work alone, or they advantage themselves, or black professors work alone, they exclude the women and all that. So all these things are there, but I will say again, our role as ODL, UNESCO, is to just say, ODL research can be done by anybody. And our role is to give you capacity and support you. So you don't have to actually go there. We've heard of people that, are called into certain resorts to come and write papers. So if you are a junior scholar, don't allow to be used simply because you are trying to climb the ladder. Academia is open and it's about learning together. So you collaborate with people that are ethical in their practice, you learn from them, and don't allow to be used by other people. And you know yourselves what is happening, so I'm not going to dwell into that. Then again, our recommendation obviously is to say, maybe Unisa should look at collaboration and incentivizing it so that more people can work together and learn together instead of, and it's the funny thing, when you look at our vision, we say it's an African university in the service of humanity. Now, being in the service of humanity means that you do things together, isn't it? But our policies say, no, run solo, And that is why there are certain papers, when we do an analysis of ODL research papers, we say, it's so shocking that this is not a paper. It's so shocking. When you sit down and look at the publications, you are like, my goodness, did this person actually read this paper properly? Was it properly peer reviewed? And what? So let's not rush to want to get published. We go to the dodgy journals so that our papers are out there. Let's put our work out there, get other people to critique us so that when your paper is pulled out, you feel good. And surprisingly, let me just make you laugh. There are certain papers of mine that I want to actually hide under the table and like, God, what was I doing? Then there are others, if you ask for it, I will give you like, read it, come on. This is good stuff. So you guys have a chance to not be in that predicament where you want to hide certain things from the internet. But it's nice again as a scholar to sit and look at the, your growth and say, goodness, what was I saying here? Was I thinking really? Then you see that you are growing slowly. With collaboration, this is possible. Then again, the policies should be pro-collaboration, and like Prof was saying, skills transfer should be emphasized and rewarded, because we always say as professors, we should be transferring skills. What does that mean? How do we do it? And we propose that collaboration can make that possible. Thank you.
See now, I can try to say that's my mentee. On a very lighter note, when I first met Sindile, it was 2010 or 9. Yeah, it was 2009. And she arrived at Unisa. She was I think a research assistant in the Department of Inclusive Education. And yeah, it's don't worry, I have to share this. So I'm giving you a trajectory. She came in as a chubby young woman who was all over the place. The first project I did with her was she got involved in Austria. What does Austria mean? Organization for
Social science research.
Yeah. And we had a Professor Laxton Kaino, who was in the Department of Mathematics, who approached me and wanted to do a special issue of African Education, which is the journal that I edit. And he brought her along. That's the first time I saw her. And he said, I'm working with Sindile, so this is what's going to happen. So I sent them back, I said, That's not how I work. You don't come to my office and say, I want a special issue. That's not how we work. You need to go back, do a proposal, bring the proposal, and we look at the proposal, then I will table it before my editorial board. And they did that. They went back and did the proposal. I think we did a couple of, I think 1 or 2 iterations. There were some things I didn't like in the proposal, so I sent it back. They reworked it. In the end, Professor Kaino says, you know what, when the message comes, I give it to Sindile, and Sindile just works as she's now making him work. Professor Kaino was making her work. That proposal came through. It was a wonderful, wonderful proposal. I sent it through the editorial board. We debated it. I actually defended it because I thought it was good. ARCSWiD, which is an agency that evaluates journals, had just given African Education Review a glowing review. But one of the things they pointed out was that we were too border constrained. We were publishing papers within South Africa, yet we called our journal Africa. And that's the challenge. We are not South African Educational Review. We are Africa Education Review. And when Professor Kaino brought the manuscripts, they were mostly from East Africa. They were looking into sustainable development goals, education for all. And I thought, this is a wonderful, wonderful thing to grapple with. We are only concerned with perceptions of service delivery here. No, let's get the debate outside. So she came in and she's been growing in that path. And I don't know how many papers I've authored with Sindile. I can tell you, you'll be shocked. We have done quite a lot of co-authored papers, and that's the key. And I looked into her, and she was this energetic person, but I also thought that she was someone who was eager to go. I don't work with someone who comes to me and say, I want to be associated with Professor Zek. I work with someone who says, this is the added value that I want to bring in. For me, that was a classic case. So this is the key. This is the key. So a couple of things that Professor Mokiwa has raised here that I want to draw attention to. I think she touched on the issue of project management. When you collaborate, you project manage. How many of you here are skilled in project management? No, you will be, because you will work in projects. Project management is a particular tradition. There is so much complications in it. I spent 8 years at the Human Sciences Research Council, and what I did was to manage projects. What I'm doing now, I'm transferring the project management skills to people who work under me. But I think the one thing that was highlighted here was the value of you working in projects that are all-encompassing. You need to work with people across the region. Because when you do that, you open your scholarship to scrutiny, but you also create pathways for you to grow. All right? At this point in time, the chair has a whole battery of collaborative partners, not just here in South Africa, but across the world. The Commonwealth of Learning. I've just been appointed a visiting professor in the Open University of Mauritius. I have doctoral students. It's part of collaboration. Virtual university, you name it, and the ODL factors in that. So to get into collaboration is for you to benchmark yourself with how work is conceived and done in other areas. If you simply focus on what you do here, you simply operate in an insulated environment. An insulated environment doesn't allow you to grow. And I think Professor Ngubane has raised so many things. We should worry about quality, the quality of the work that we do, the quality of the people that we engage with, and the quality of the interactions we have with people. When you pull all these things together, they are all contributory to your reputation as a scholar. Your reputation cannot be based on dubious partnerships, okay? Now, with all those short comments, the floor is open. Comments?
No. I was just saying if we could maybe take a 2-minute break. The tea is getting cold.
No, we're not here for tea, we're here for collaboration. Okay, let's take a break. This is my Director General. When she speaks, I do. Can we take a break, 5-10 minutes break, have coffee, and then we'll come back. By the way, we pay for it, so you must make sure that it's good. Hey,
Yeah, so this is okay, girls. What do you think? If you thought the president yeah, it's the way she looks at you. And the thing is, actually, recommendations. And by the way, you were live. Oops. And I hope you can take us a peek. Social media. No. You need to get the whole picture. Yeah. Will it show? Wait. This is the conversation. You cannot have it without. Same aggressive. Now we need to put for 2 minutes. Yes, we need that one. Oh no, what was I saying? Yes. She'll send it to us. Yeah, I like this one. Yes. So that will pop up. Can you send this one?
Something that I wish now. I have to work on it. But then,
It's very
absolutely listen and discuss with you.
in YouTube.
No, for that you jump. No, I don't have email address. Should I use Prof's email address or use
Oh no. Yeah. You know, do me. No. She's me. When you wear 40 empty, so she just starts. She says even when you're casual, she says even when you're casual, you can take it so I said this is my style. She basically, I flip over. She basically, no, when you wear jeans, you must take care. So I have to go out. Yes. So are you doing? No. But you negotiated with them.
She said she had a strong
When you get to the official say,
That's really a fee. What do you think? Thank you. I'm telling them that.
Enjoy. I have to.
Whenever
Yeah.
So ngithi hayi uyasirelieve.
Yes, at least once, a month.
No, bomntasa. Inhloniphe, umuntu omdala kaphawu lo. Bahlele la muntu omdala.
Bemele bona bayadenzela.
Inhloniphe.
But you didn't write the first one. No, the first one. I love the invite to the new one. So you should have RSVP. Are you saying? Thank you. Yeah, exactly. Thank you very much. So next time we'll have to because this is a problem king.
Okay, shall we sit down? Start the discussion. Hello. Maybe just sit down. Can you sit down, please? All right. While they are finishing off their dietary requirements, I was at a stage where I wanted to open the floor for discussion. I think it's open to now. If people have comments and they have questions, I'd really like to hear people. This is an opportunity for us to engage. You can ask Sindile, you can ask me, and I expect people here also. If you have any contribution, because this is an open forum, I recognize you. I'll take 2 hands, and I'll take a round of maybe 3 or 4 questions, and you will come back again. So far, I see only 2 hands. You have a question? Yes, okay, now I have 1, 2, 3, 4. So you ask your question 1 or 2, be brief. Don't give a lecture. Prof of you has already given a lecture. Yeah, some people go there, hey, we want to know my What's the question? What is your question? And you never get, sometimes, oh, I even forgot what was the question. You're taking 10 minutes. I'll start with you.
Okay, I'm going to really challenge you on that because sometimes certain questions need you to narrate and elaborate. So unfortunately, women talk, men just, they are brief and they say, I want to choose.
After you've said that, I'll give you an image of how men can tell a female fly and a male fly.
So what I wanted to know, Prof, is thank you for a very interesting lecture, Prof. I really appreciate it because I'm from health sciences. We're not really that much. We're trying to climb up the ladder to promote what is needed by the university and the world. But what I want to know, Prof, is with collaborations, I'm still having a challenge with, if you do, because what we were initiated into was like, you can't really go across board. And we've always been hammering and saying, can we please go across board with other departments? So when you collaborate, say now, with a Unisa from another department versus collaborating with somebody on the same specialty from another university, well now, how is that considered? Is it a better collaboration or a better collaboration if you go across the streams and now fly out, or just between departments or between universities would also like strengthen your collaboration?
Okay. Next one.
Yes. Then your colleague from UTC.
Yeah, I'd like us to look at the community of inquiry model. Just show us that. Yes, and I'd like to say, okay, thank you very much, Prof. Yes, for the presentation. Now, this is a very important model, and I like the adaptation. The fact that you're going to adapt it, and when you adapt that teacher, the teaching presence for this particular project that we are in, this collaborations and so on, that teacher says, the teacher in me, we can all be teachers. It's just that we usually hold information. We don't want to share information. Even when we see mistakes in, maybe in other people's work, we don't question to say, there are mistakes here. That's what I do. I've trained as a teacher, but I don't use that one. I use this thing which is innate in me to say, you should always be able to say, there is a mistake here. Don't say, no, if I tell them the truth, they are going to agree here. There are those who say, if I tell them that this is wrong, now they're going to correct it, and they're going to be okay. So that teacher is very, very important, that when we collaborate, let us all be teachers. It will be the teacher in me, and that will make you at least give some inputs into whatever you are doing. You are not going to keep quiet and say, I don't know. And there's something in all of us. Yeah, when we see things are not okay in our project, whatever we shall be doing, let's point out such to say, no, this is not okay. Let's not wait for others who seem to be having knowledge to be saying things to us or doing things for us. Let us also use that thing that we have, the teacher in me.
Okay. It's a wonderful observation. I like that. Jimmy? It's two.
Okay. From a student's perspective, I find that the Unisa model of learning tends to be individual, because there are minimal opportunities for collaboration when you're like learning. And if I'm coming from, if I'm studying at Unisa and then I'm going into academia, obviously my background then will be mostly individual. How do you then propose that I grow into working with other colleagues and to collaborate? My second question then is, how do you guard against the watering down of the quality of your work when you are collaborating? Let's say in a mentor-mentee type of relationship, where there's a head like a senior academic and a junior academic.
Noted? Yeah.
Hi, I'm also a student, so I wanted to ask, how does one really, be vigilant as a student and prevent being exploited in the program? Because, you spoke about the whole people taking your work and putting their name on it, for example. I was worried about that. Also just, things like that, or even being, I don't want to say sexually harassed, but we do live in that age. So, how does one guard? Because I think it can be difficult because you're young and you want to get into the industry, and you're not in a position of how you can be like, no, do this.
Second round.
Second round.
I took one round of four. I'll come back again.
Thanks for the questions. Actually, let me start with you because you've just said something that's very interesting. If you remember what Prof said, came here, I was a research assistant, having been taken under the Grow Your Own Timber whatever project. Now what's interesting is that, you know, when you have this fire burning inside you, you'll go out there and talk about your research project. I want to do this and do it. But voila, later somebody had my project as their research project. A staff member, and I was a research assistant. Now let me tell you something very interesting about that. I sat there and I thought, I presented this to this guy. Like, this is my work. Then I thought, should I, you know, like go and fight this person or whatever. Then, because I remember I said at the beginning, things just happened. Then I said, there is more where that came from. I changed the topic, I did something else. And even with that, the supervisor that I had, there were issues. I even changed that and did something else. What I'm saying is this: when there's ideas, there's many angles into something. Eh? So it could be this, when this other person comes and says this, because wherever there's innovation, there's a lot of it. So once you are a free thinker and you don't limit yourself, believe me, when somebody thinks they've got you like this by your balls, if you have, whoa. Yeah, I'm sorry, but that's it. When somebody, yeah, so when somebody thinks they've got you like this, yes, I've got this person, believe me, you are able to just divert and come up with another angle. But as a student, you remember all the students have turn it in. In terms of your work, whatever you write, there's a record. When you put it into turn it in, there's a record of what you put in there. Now, if she takes it and submits it as her work, when there's a case of plagiarism, you are able to go back to your record of what you had put in, and the dates are there, the time is there. They will know that you were the first one who did that work. So when the university is giving you all these support mechanisms, use them to protect yourself. On the side of us as students, like when you're doing your postgraduate work, do the same thing. Put it on Turnitin, save it, put dates, you know, everything that you do. And when you are giving somebody to read your work, turn it into a PDF document. Because a PDF, they cannot change it. They can always put sticker notes and whatever, then you have your own. So let's learn these things, and that is why the university gives you all these soft skills into how you can protect yourself. I hope that is covered.
Can I answer that again?
Yes.
I think what she's asking, and Dumi said that in the end, coming to a case,
yes,
there must be accountability.
Yes.
Yeah, I think what the question was, how do you hold someone who abuses their position of power to usurp someone else's work? How do you hold them accountable? I think the university has it's a mechanism. I don't like it, but I recognize its worth, which is whistleblowing. Yeah, whistleblowing is if you have a concern, you can approach the office, you can put a case and you remain anonymous, then the case gets investigated. Sometimes whistleblowing can have unintended consequences. But the intention with whistleblowing is you do not want to report and be the face of the person who is reported, which can then put you in a position where you can be victimized. So it seeks to protect whistleblowers. I mean, right now, in the larger commissions, whistleblowers are under threat. Some of them have had their lives threatened. So that number is meant to protect you. You can go and call someone, I believe so-and-so has used the word, that doesn't belong to them, blah, 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 blah. Then an investigation takes place. I found myself in a very unfortunate situation. At some stage, I received a paper from a very respected professor from one historically respected white Afrikaans institution in South Africa. For ethical purposes, that institution shall not be mentioned, and the professor in question shall not be mentioned. but this is the professor who is on the cutting edge of South Africa's research, who influences almost everything that, the Department of Education, the NRF, ASAP, they listen to this professor. He submitted a paper in my journal, and I sent the paper over
for review. There were issues. And apparently the professor then left and went on sabbatical somewhere in the Scandinavian peninsula. Scandinavia can be anything. It can be Norway, it can be Denmark, it can be Sweden. But yeah, the professor was away. So the paper had issues, and I wanted to send the reviews to the professor, and there was no response. But there was a co-author, and the co-author was the professor's doctoral student. So I tracked this co-author, who was at that stage now based at UCT. And I tracked her and I said to her, hi, there are these issues with the paper that you have co-authored with your professor, and really this is holding back my publication. I need to get this manuscript in. So can I please have responses? Surprise, surprise. What paper? That was the question on the phone. What paper? Professor said, what paper are you talking about? So I then gave it, the title of the paper is this and this and this. You are the co-author. Am I a senior or junior? So you are number 2. She said, oh, she just said, oh, bollocks. Now you know what bollocks means. That's it. And then I realized that this is serious. So I had to go back to the institution, the director of Institute, and said, I need to contact this professor ASAP. And they say, what is it about? So I said, there are ethical issues. And I confronted the professor, look, there's a problem, and this is why I've done the situation. And he says, Prof, wait, let me come back to South Africa, I'll resolve the matter. And I said, so should I take it out? And he says, well, if you can put it in the next issue after. So I basically packed it. And he came back. The message that I got later was, dear Professor Lesega, I hereby wish you to grant me permission to withdraw the paper. And that's exactly the point. This person thought that this was a very powerful paper, and he was going to get points, but without consulting and getting the approval of the person on whose doctorate the paper was based. But I think it was, as you can understand, it was just sheer coincidence and sheer luck that I had to consult the student. If I had sent it, for example, if he had had access to the manuscript, he could have simply responded to and then send it back. You see what I'm saying? And I can bet you, by the time the paper was ready to be published, my hunch is that he was going to ask me to remove the student, because the student was not. So these are kind of things that, these things are happening. They are happening, but it's important that we take responsibility and we understand how does the institution provide us with support. There are lots and lots of mechanisms. Turnitin is one of them, whistleblowing, but also just being vigilant, you know. Okay, all right? So you can go, you can go ahead. No, sexual harassment. Yeah, she did raise how. Yeah, she did say what happens when you feel sexually harassed.
Like, what if I have
you missed that.
What if I have a male supervisor?
And then?
To protect myself?
Okay, that one, because I'm the deputy president of the Women's Forum. There's something that we do as women, which is not good. We already, maybe because of socialization, we assume victimhood before even the relationship starts. If you get in, whether the supervisor is male or not, and you show him that you are assertive and you are not going to take BS, if you know what that means, then he's not going to give you that. But
should it happen?
Should it happen, there are mechanisms. You know, I mean, another thing, by the way, when you go for supervision, people will always say, close the door. But you say that, you know what, Prof, for your own safety, let's leave the door open. Make him feel like he matters more. For your own safety, Prof, let's leave the door open. So that from the beginning, he knows that you are not going to allow anything. But again, we do it, and it's out there. There are cases that are happening where we go there and act all lovey-dovey because it's what is it, marks for sex and marks for hugs and all these things. So let's not start the thing and then later on we cannot stand it. I'm sorry, but it happens. But again, we are here. There's more women scholars. If you feel that you don't want to deal with all those things, then from the beginning, look for a woman. But again, I must warn you, I was supervised by a woman, and I got more abuse from the woman than, you see. So again, it's all about being assertive. The university has a disciplinary code that governs relationships between academics and students. You must read those things. When you come in as a student, you must read and know your rights. I'm not supposed to tell you to go and make tea for me. I'm not supposed to tell you. There are students that I've had that when they come for supervision, they bring khemer, they bring magwina, because, I mean, you are not even supposed to bring me chocolate. I get paid to teach you, I get paid to supervise you. So there is nothing, there is no favors here. So let's be assertive, okay? Then on the issue of what Dumi is raising, of how do you guard against, you know, I would think ICT, by the way, let's make use of ICT. Whatever work that you email to anybody, there is a log that is there. So should there be a certain, you know, instance where I refute that you sent me something, go to ICT and say, can you go to my, that's why we have student numbers and staff numbers. Each and every log that you make into the system is recorded at ICT. And that is why now in higher education, they've brought in computer forensics. Because forensics have been used mostly for financial issues. But within academia, because of all these integrity issues, students are, you know, documents are being refuted and whatever, ICT now is being used to make sure that you can follow up on these things. But again, be assertive. Do not assume that because you are a student, now you are a lamb that needs to be sacrificed by academics. You have a right as a student. Then, how do you learn to collaborate? Of course, when we grow, we are taught it's your marks, you must hide, and all that. But when I think it's how you manage, you know, what do I give out? How much do I give out? We're just talking with Asteria now. We are going to have a working paper series that's going to be starting next week. Now, that working paper series, you can send about 3 to 4 pages of your idea, but you will decide how much you put into that working paper, so that it does not look like later on when you send it into a journal as if it's the same thing, you understand? Because a working paper is just to provoke questions and criticism and what, so that you can develop a bigger paper. So what I'm saying is that in this particular case, it's you who need to learn how to manage those relationships. What becomes individual? What do I share so that my friends do not copy it? How much of it do I share? You cannot be over-trusting because all of us are out there to eat. Of course. Then on the issue of teaching in all of us, this just goes back to the concept of peer learning. To say that when we work together, there's no assumption that, I mean, when I was in UK for vision keeping, you know Professor Alan Tate, who's a guru in ODL. I got there and I was like, Prof, I was so excited, you know, you're my mentor, and then he says, Sindile, I know you're not going to be very happy about this. And I'm thinking, okay. Then he says, I actually know nothing about your work. You know, I do issues of disability. He's a guru in student support. And he was honest, he said he knows nothing about disability. Then he says, I'm prepared to share what I know, and I want to learn more from you. You see, so what I'm saying is that when we work in collaboration, let's not assume that we are empty vessels. You know something that I don't know, and we are going to learn together. So once you acknowledge yourself first, that you have prior experience, you have prior knowledge, that you are there to share, then you'll see that you will be a valuable contributing member into whatever that you get into. And again, don't go into, I'll give you an example. There's a project on philosophy. What will I be doing there? Don't get into projects for the sake of getting into projects. Ask yourself, what do I have to contribute? And what is it that I want to learn? Don't just put your name everywhere for the sake of putting it. And we are notorious of that. Ne? Then you are there, and that is why at the end you'll find that people start losing interest because they got into things that they are really not interested in, you know? So rather be in 1 or 2 very critical projects that are going to contribute into your growth, and you also contributing to others' growth, than being in 5 projects and everybody starts complaining about you because you are ruining your own reputation. Ah, that one just puts her name. Of course, what was she doing? I know nothing about philosophy. You see? Then, ma'am, you talked about the issue of doing work inside, collaborating or outside. Now, the interesting thing is, as Unisa, when you say you are going to collaborate with colleagues from the Open University of Nigeria, Open University of Sudan, Open University of Mauritius, Unisa is going to listen to you. But if you say you are going to contribute with your, collaborate with your colleague next door in your floor, you really have to convince the research funding office that really that is necessary, you know? So what I'm saying is that it goes back to what we were saying, that not just in terms of funding, but in terms of also, I said that as Unisa, we are highly respected as the leader in ODL. So all these other universities in other countries, they want to know what we are doing. So get into collaboration with Zimbabwe Open University, and you'll be surprised, those colleagues, they can work in any condition because they don't have most of the privileges that we have. So you learn, others will learn from you, you learn from them, and you will get to actually expand your network. So the collaboration internally is good, but let's go out because, as Prof Ngubane said, there's a bigger ground to play. When you play here, that's why people are fighting. Eh? There's so much of academic jealousy here. It's as if Unisa is the only place, you know, the ground is big. And that is why some of us don't work inside. We work outside. You know, we actually, you walk out of here, you go to Botswana. When you walk in anywhere in Botswana, there are people that are doing ODL. They'll be like, hey, how are you? You go to Namibia, how are you? You go to this, but at Unisa, there are people that might not know me. So we are playing in the bigger ground where you have less chances of somebody kicking your leg because there's no jealousy there. We are all playing and playing fair. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. I understand the issue of collaboration. So my question is, how can I sort of infuse passion and interest departmentally towards ODL research? Looking at the fact that there are colleagues out there, they are having their own focus, which is not ODL per se, and looking at the fact that ODL research is a university agenda. So how can I infuse or how can I recruit, besides maybe inviting them to be in these types of platforms? And then the second question, the issue of collaboration in relation to jealousy of publication around here. How can you advise the procedure of how can I collaborate with that university in Botswana, that university in Zimbabwe?
Good. Any other question?
There's another question.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. How do we, after we have effectively decided in the paper to record, let's say we are 6 or 7, how do we practically disseminate the work amongst ourselves so that we avoid having other scholars not working or other people not working in the paper? Because that is always practically, challenging. Okay.
So there are 2 questions that you've taken in this round. Is there any other burning issue? So you guys are comfortable. Silence means consent. Get out of my seminar. Okay, can you take this, Prof Ngubane-Mokiwa?
The issue of passion and getting to recruiting people and all that, it has worked for us where in the departmental meeting, you ask for a slot that you would like to talk about ODL research, you can invite us, we'll come in and present in your meeting. That's our work. And we have projects that we've actually conceptualized in certain colleges with the colleagues there. So I remember I kept on saying that our work is to support you. So if you really have the interest and the passion, you invite us, we come in, excite people. Then after that, of course, our work is to excite people. We have to make things. Of course, I mean, ODL research is fun, yeah. So we'll come excite people, but again, in terms of now, consistency and maintaining all that, then you'll be our contact person to make sure that we conceptualize a project together that talks to what you do in your department and ODL in general, and then you constitute, once you say, colleagues, I have a project about, let's say, how do you teach this element of health sciences in ODL, and we are going to partner with Zimbabwe Open University and Nigeria, what. Those who are interested, please come in. And you'll be surprised. People will express interest. You say that there'll be support, you say that and surprising with the other ones that we conceptualized in other colleges, because they were the only ODL projects that were conceptualized, they got funding. Actually, the ODL coordinators were saying, please do fast. They even fast-tracked their ethical clearance for them, because there's one thing that we forget. Our deans, our head of departments, their performance their performance appraisal depends on what you do. So in most cases, when we look at our performance, we think of ourselves only. Whatever you do, and it has an ODL element, it elevates your head of department. So you talk to your head of department and get a buy-in. If they know the strategy of the university, they'll support you. But if they don't, then you have the right to elevate and say, I have an ODL project, what, and I'm not getting support. And we can do that for you because our work is to support you. I hope you have answered. Then the second one of collaboration, how do you collaborate? Unisa has, through the office of Sindile Ngubane in Horong, we have memorandums of understanding and agreements with most entities. So one time, just take a walk and go down there to the Office of Partnerships, International Partnerships, and find out what memorandum of understanding do we have, and then you see which one relates with what you want to do. And they'll even give you some contact person in that particular university that you can write to and say, I would like to do 1, 2, 3. But another simplest way is you do your Google Scholar search and find out who's doing the work that you do in those universities. You send an email, they are going to respond. They are always excited to work with us. I don't want to lie to you. And very enthusiastic, they work very hard. Just send the email. If one doesn't respond, send to the other. And if you want to, we can always also contact you connect you because we work with them. Yeah.
Because I missed the name of the person from
Sindile Ngubane-Mokiwa, yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, welcome. Then the last one, I think you talked about papers, ne?
Yes, dissemination of work.
Dissemination of work.
Yes, on a specific lab.
No, that one is even nice because you remember last week, you were not there. We were talking about anybody who's doing ODL work, please send it to us. If you have my email address, you have Nsamba, you have any of the team in IODL, you send your work, then we have a repository where we are putting everything that has to do with ODL. So that when you click there, you can get all the work, and the idea is simple. For us to become the scholars that we want to be, we need to cite each other. I'm not being racist here. You cannot have a paper that has Smith and DeVos and the what, and you don't have Ngubane. You are lying to yourself. This is Africa. Am I wrong? We are the majority in this country. So I have a serious problem with people that do not want to acknowledge that there are other voices in this country when it comes to scholarship. And it doesn't mean that don't put Smith, but put Smith and put, let's say, put you know, everybody else, because that is how we make sure that we have each other's voices, you understand? So when you are doing your papers, please open your search. And once you get me, you are definitely going to get somebody, you are going to get Maklabe, you are going to get so and so. And then we are all there. But obviously, don't cite me if I'm not relevant to your work. All I'm saying is that just do a proper search and look for local authors, look for African authors before you go and cite Scandinavian authors, because most of the work that they do sometimes has no relevance into what we do. Yeah.
I'm not in that answer.
But dissemination.
Let him follow up.
Yeah.
I was saying we've got a project that we are working on, and we are 6 or 7.
Yes.
How do you make sure that everybody contributes?
Yes.
Oh!
Yes. How do you distribute?
Let him, at first you said dissemination. Yeah. So
here's the thing, the way projects work, and I'll use my own projects. The way projects work, there are teams, but there's always a team leader. The job of a team leader in a project is to find a semblance of balance in the voices. I don't know how you are working in your project, but there must be someone who heads the project. That person who heads the project has a job to get all the contributions and balance them in the paper. That's what a project leader does. The project leader creates an element of balance. For example, there's another doctor here, Dr. Matlabe. We work together. When they bring staff, my job is to look into how equitably is the work delivered. If someone else's work is not up to standard, I would say, but you're not arguing well here. The job of a project leader is to create that balance, to make sure that the contributions are evenly balanced. And then you send it back so that others can check whether, the verification process does that. The balancing of who does what is basically something that you trust with the project leader, but the project leader doesn't make a solo decision. They make a recommendation, they send it back. You still have to go back and check whether is your work even. It's a skill that you do when you manage a project. Okay? When you submit a co-authored paper to the NRA, when you register for the NRA, they will ask you what was the contribution of the author, and that's what the project leader does. His job is to make sure that the efforts of all the authors are equitably distributed. And you need to understand that and agree on it. If you feel that your work is not visible, is not made visible as you read it, that's exactly where the collaboration and the consensus comes in. Okay? Does it make sense?
Yeah, but it doesn't.
Well, for me,
yeah, because those skills, those skills don't have like us, no researchers. I'm just wondering if I'm collaborating with other Novi researchers, how can I, say to them, you do the introduction, you do the...
But you already, when you do that, you're already taking over the coordination. Okay. You're just saying it. Once you do that, in a project, someone must coordinate the process. You cannot have a project that just runs amok. Yeah, you understand what I'm saying? Even if you're novice researchers coming together, someone has to take charge of the process. Otherwise, if you say you are in a project, you are working and there's no coordination, there's no leadership, then that's not a project. It's just individuals coming together. Someone has to take responsibility. And that someone who takes responsibility assumes the coordination. And it is at the level of coordination where the measurement of who contributes what gets established. You cannot say you are in a teamwork when you are just individuals. Then that's not a project. You see, your argument will be defeating its purpose. Once you are in a project, someone assumes coordination. Whether it's a novice, you should trust someone to lead. Otherwise, if everybody else is leading, then that's not a project. It's everybody else is doing their own thing.
And
yes.
Also, and also, if I may just add, it talks to task distribution.
Yes. Yeah.
You remember when I started, I said when Prof asked for the paper, what did I say? I called my postdoc and I said, can you go and do this review?
Yeah.
He did the lit review, and then I had to think, what's the problem? Deal with the introduction, and the paper has been going back and forth because Prof was clear about, I don't want a PowerPoint, a mere PowerPoint. I want a draft. By the time you come to present, there must be a draft. So as we are presenting, this is just a gist of what we have in the paper. So even last night, as much as I'm sick, I sent him and I said, do you have anything else to add? You see?
Did you have anything?
Yeah, so it's about task distribution and very clear. You cannot say do literature review and then you are also jumping and doing it. So it must be clear who's going to do what, and then obviously when you sit down and you look at that literature review, there might be things that you want to add, and he might also have something to add to this. So it's a relationship actually. That is why I said that when you are identifying your project members, be sure that you are putting people that you can work with, not just anybody. Yeah.
I'll come back to you. There's a voice that hasn't been made. You're making a follow-up. I need to hear, I'll give you a chance. Hi.
Thank you, Prof. I just wanted to ask, when you are collaborating with other scholars, what are the guidelines that you can rely on at the beginning of the collaboration and during the collaboration that will help you to protect yourself from being exploited intellectually?
Yeah. Simple. Go to the Unisa policies, look for the Unisa research ethics policy. Okay? It makes up exactly that. When you conduct research, the key issue there is that every research activity that we engage in must be governed by an ethical disposition. But it demarcates when you collaborate, this is what you do, when you do this. But if you need further information, this is something that I can secretly provide you with the whole range of. For example, I'm a member of the British Research Ethics Association in Vienna, and it also has its own ethics of how do you govern research in terms of collaboration. But you need to find what Unisa says. You need to then dovetail that with what happens on the global scale. But you'll see that there are overlaps, there are convergences, and it's important that you then create a cross-pollinated approach to how you cannot do collaborative research by grounding yourself on what happens in Islam. You need to open it up to what happens in other places. Does that answer?
Yes.
I'm on the 11th floor.
Okay.
This building. Come and knock. There's my team there. They'll let you know.
Thank you.
Yeah, but also, Prof, if I may just add something very simple, is we cannot, you remember whenever we feel anything, there is risks. Working with people is a risk. I might look like this, but I'm not trustworthy. Yeah. You know, and the fact that I'm a free thinker might mean that you might take longer to do what you want to do because I'll be busy coming up with new things. So what I'm saying is that part of working with people is a risk itself. Now, the main thing is that you yourself, you put those mechanisms, you have timeless meetings where you want updates. How far are we getting to the objective? Because again, you can't work without clear objectives. Some people will come up with something and then it's not clear who's going to do what, who's, objectives and not what. So as Prof is saying, go to the 11th floor. We are all open, even at ODL. You come in, we open these conversations and we see how we can actually enhance this because it can be an exciting experience.
When I spoke about team, I hinted at the back there that in my academic Ubuntu, I had to fire 3 researchers. That was precisely because of that. There were very clear guidelines, there were very clear timelines, right? You're going to be doing this and this and this, you're going to be submitting on this particular date. And as a project leader, my job is to manage. I sit in my office, I have all this time, and as papers come through, I know this one is submitted, I take. And when someone doesn't comply, I send an email, hi, you're fully behind. Where are you? And I remember sending an email, making a follow-up email, and then lastly I said, no, I need to have a conversation with this person. There were 2 professors. I said, lady and gentlemen, can we have a conversation? I went to their offices. Where are we? My publisher wants me to submit the manuscript. I haven't had anything from you. Can I see what you have done? Well, we have not really written anything. This is at a time when I'm supposed to submit. You understand that? These people had violated that contractual agreement.